A very good evening to you. Friday late night's back. Yeah, I managed to get him on, but he's been busy. We've all been busy. We all mean well, but real life gets in the way of football sometimes. But let's bring him on because it's been a while. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah. Been busy.
There's
been a lot of games to watch still, hasn't there? We've been busy.
there's been games to watch or big games to go to. Yeah. But the fans are unhappy, and I guess the theme of tonight, we've got to talk about Potter and some of the fan base going on about how they want him out, Nigel.
Yeah.
After
he's had his 10 games now, hasn't he? So
is that the benchmark?
That's when you start to see a manager realistically bedding in. A lot of people. You go back to Lopetegui. A lot of people were finished with him after 10 games.
Okay, so what's your view? We've had 11 games actually, and he's won 3. I think we've lost something like 7, drawn 1 or drawn 2. Something
that include
like
the cup game. So
including the cup game.
Yeah. When I say 10, he's had 10 Premier
10 league games. So
yeah.
Okay, he came in, and we all know the story. Good evening to everyone, by the way, and I will look at your comments in a minute. But he came in. We knew that Lopetegui had to go. I mean, it wasn't good. Or do you have a different view?
I don't think he had to go. I think we weren't going to get relegated.
Yeah.
You could have left him to the end of the season. I think that would have been fairer. I'm not disappointed that Potter's a manager. I do think that had probably been, for whatever reason he wasn't appointed, would have been better off starting the season with him. That's for sure. It'd have been better off being appointed when Lopetegui was appointed.
Yeah.
But I do think, Lopetegui's been coming out in the press, hasn't he? And the thing that Lopetegui says is the examples of change or his changes were starting to bear fruit. Now, people can and ah about that. If we go on the stats, that sort of actually, you can point at it. So if you look at his last 2 games, though, his last 2 games were Man City and Liverpool.
Yeah.
Liverpool home, Man City away. Games, we do get beat. I think the last time we beat City away was Slaven.
It was.
Funny enough.
Yeah.
Last time we beat Liverpool at home, well, Moyes did it. Funny enough, I think we beat Liverpool at home, but it ain't often it happens. And Liverpool at the end of the day this season have only lost 1 game. They're not playing that well, but they are still winning games.
So in essence, either of those games were not going to be winnable games.
So if you look at the 4 games previous to that, he hadn't lost them. But then what you do is you look at the fact that the idea of football is to score goals, yeah, and the chances created under Lopetegui were going up and up and up to the point that against Man City, we created more chances against Man City in that game than we had done in the previous 3 or 4 visits to the Etihad combined under Moyes.
But given that, was that
we got beat 4-1 the result?
This is it. Was that to the detriment of us conceding goals left, right, and centre?
This is the thing. Is that a case of, well, we played more expansive against Man City? Yay. But that's what happens when you do that against you do it against the right team, the wrong team, or you keep doing it. That's what happened. So, look, there was a lot of disquiet early on, as I said, roughly after 8-10 games of Lopetegui. If you compared like for like stats, it's not a good look for Potter. But then it's unfair to judge Potter in my opinion, on that way, because this ain't really his team, and I do believe he's got a free hit. You know, with this season, he's got a lot. You know, we went the wrong way, didn't we? Unfortunately, there's so many different parts to it when you're throwing Stadion as well. You know,
Well, this is it, isn't it? Because you know what, I look at what Potter's done, and I won't lie to you. Those first 3-4 games, I've kind of alluded to them quite a bit. To the 2 Aston Villas away, the Chelsea game at that time,
away.
I think it was away as well.
Yeah.
And we were unlucky in that.
Yeah.
The Aston Villa game. I mean, the first game, the FA Cup game. Honestly, Nigel, we were excited, weren't we? We saw a team coming out and having a right go, and many could argue, oh well, it's the FA Cup and he had nothing to lose, etc. But I mean, what we saw, I thought, was a blueprint. And I know you can't just rely on one player, but I wonder if it's a massive miss for him is the way he used Crescencio Somerville in that game. You know, he surprised us all when he used him on the right-hand side. And the way Somerville was the boss of that game until he got injured.
Yeah.
And it gave me an insight. It gave me an insight as to what I think Potter's trying to do. He's trying to use players with pace to go at teams, etc. But at the same time, don't forget what's going on behind you and try and shore up the defense.
Yeah.
And if that in that game, if I remember, the goals they got, that second goal they got came from a corner that never was.
Yes.
You know, and they scored from it. And I guess,
but you still got to defend it.
You've still got to defend it. Yeah.
It weren't a corner, but it was a corner because that's what the officials gave, and you've got to defend it. Yeah. You got to defend it like it was a true corner.
But in essence, he's secured. He's under Lopetegui. I hear what you're saying. We were creating a lot of chances, but we were leaking like a bucket with a big hole in it. And now what we've got is we've got the defensive structure. He's just got to get the. I've said about the squad. I personally think the squad's imbalanced. You know, because we don't have the right players to be able to play the defensive way as well as the attack. If this makes sense, you either under Lopetegui, it's either like you know you're going to defend badly, so you just try and create as many chances as you can. Under Potter, he's had to address that, where he's had to defend, but it's paying the price.
Yeah,
for our attacking
actually, you can see it in the Wolves goal. Under Lopetegui, we got caught a lot on the break. Yeah, because we were, I suppose, trying to attack more later time. Under Potter, that doesn't happen. If you look at the games recently, you know, we're only conceded 1 goal roughly a game in the games that we've played recently. The problem is the goals have dried up, but not only the goals have dried up, the chances created have dried up as well.
Yeah.
So, what did we have? So, we were at Everton, weren't we? So, I'm trying to think of the last recent games. We've Everton.
We had Everton away, Newcastle at home.
Yeah. I mean, the weird thing is for me is that I've really enjoyed the away games under Potter.
Yeah.
I have. And I've only missed the Villa one. So I've really enjoyed the away games under Potter. The Chelsea game, we were desperately unlucky. Villa in the cup, we were unlucky. Villa in the league, we could have won that. Chelsea should have got a point, could have won.
Should have. We would. Yeah.
Could have, should have, would have. Everton, 2 minutes from winning it. You know.
Yeah.
They got a point. What's the who did we win? We beat Arsenal away, didn't we?
We beat Arsenal away. We got what people say was a lucky win against Fulham at home. And then of course we beat Leicester 2-0.
That's what I'm saying. You look at the home form, and then we've beat Fulham and Leicester. The Fulham game, we were gifted 3 goals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we gifted them there too, strangely enough. So it was a bit of a weird, and we were lucky to get away with Fulham at the end should have nicked a point.
Yeah.
So then you got the Leicester, then you've got the last 3 home games of Brentford, Palace, and Newcastle. We've took nothing from them, but in all 3 games we've been outplayed. So there is a worry there, but look, this season is, it's not a write-off as such, but it's all about Potter using what he's got, discovering who he wants to keep for next season, and who he would like to move on, or who he has to move on to bring in the money, and then see where the recruitment goes. I suppose the good thing is, well, we hope he's not going to have people put on him. He's part of the
decision making, the selection,
and the decision
process.
making. Yeah. This is what we're led to believe.
Do you get the fan base being frustrated, or do you think it's a little bit knee jerk?
What happened is that if you look at our life in the stadium, so the club was supposed to change with the stadium move, and people go, you can't bang on about it, but that was what was supposed to happen. Yeah. We weren't supposed to ever be sitting in 16th spot with the stadium move. This is what was sold to the fans. Go in there, we'll push West Ham on. And what happens is then you look at clubs like, especially this season, though they're starting to drop off, Bournemouth and Brighton.
Yeah.
Last couple of seasons. Well, why ain't West Ham? We've done that. Well, actually, we did under Moyes, playing a different way. But funny enough, under Moyes, we were better than Bournemouth and Brighton. This season, it's a bit different. They're starting to fall away. We've had a drop off. Then you've got Nottingham Forest. The funny thing about Nottingham Forest is that when you look at the way they play football and their stats, they play Moyes ball. But what they've got,
they play counter-attacking football.
Right? But what they have got is 2 absolutely fantastic players wide, who in Ilanga and Hudson-Odoi.
Yeah.
And then you've got Chris Wood, ultimate target man. So if they get the ball in the box, he's getting on the end of it. And it's worked. And they've not had injuries to these people.
They've not injured. Well, yeah, but he's been injured lately, isn't he?
But, good scouting. Look, they've found Murillo. And the trick for Forest now is next year they're going to have Europe. Can they keep Murillo?
This is it. It becomes a different ball game, doesn't it? And we've seen that.
Yeah.
Because when we finished, what was it, 6th or 7th or whatever, and we got into Europe, that was a great. And many people argued, it was because it was no pressure because it was lockdown and all that sort of stuff. But we maintained that. That's that next season when we were in Europe, and we did extremely well.
I think that was a better season. I think the season we finished 7th was better than we finished 6th. And the reason for that is because when we finished 6th, we didn't have European football. And I think on the podcast, I said I thought at that season when we finished 7th, I thought we would finish 12th. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did. I thought we would finish 12th because European football, and I didn't think we'd get to the semi-final. So to get to the semi-final of the UEFA Cup and still manage to finish 7th, great achievement. And we fell away at the end, which was a shame. We did run out of steam that season.
I remember that was the in January when Moyes said, "I don't need anyone."
Yeah, and we did. We did run out of steam.
Did do. Yeah.
So. And the thing as well, quickly about this manager thing is that you get a manager like Moyes who actually brought real success, to West Ham. That only 2 other managers have done because he won a trophy. He not only got us in Europe, he won a European trophy, and he brought success to a whole 2-3 generation of fans that had never seen it. So if you imagine that the 20-year-olds of now were 10-year-olds at Upton Park when we left. Yeah. So they're brought up. They're brought up. So here's this man who's come in, and for them, they're not. When you're young, you're not hung up on the West Ham way. Yeah, you're not hung up on we got to play a certain way. You talk to youngsters, they want to win football games. In fact, you talk
It
to
almost
footballers,
doesn't matter
it's
how.
always about the result. Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's what it delivered. So here was a man who delivered results, the best results that West Ham had combined in the Premier League era. So, but here's a man who delivered a trophy, and then what happened is a large section of the fan base are like, he's a dinosaur, he's football shit, he bores the crap out of us, he's got to go. And naturally, you take people of our age, we cling to John Lyle. We cling to John Lyle's God. You know, the funny thing is people think, oh, for me, John Lyle's the greatest. But John Lyle's the man at the end of the day, though. I will tell the facts. John Lyle's still the man that relegated us twice that no other West Ham manager's ever done.
Never done that, yeah.
Yeah. He was the man that relegated us twice.
He gets a bit of a pass though because he was a West Ham man.
There's that factor to it and everything else and that's why he's almost godlike to me. Because he is esteemed in the club, he's brought up a West Ham fan. He his career's done in injury, and he works himself up from the office tea boy to leading us out into winning FA Cups. So, and that's why that's why you get this with the more it's still the Moyes lovers and everything. They will still look to that because what they say is, we had a bloke that brought us success in league position in a trophy, and we threw him away.
Yeah. So in that respect, then, does any manager stand any remote chance of succeeding at West Ham? What is it? Because there was a comment. I did a show the other night, and there was a comment came out and said, "We'll never get better until we sign a top 6 manager." And I'm like, well, what's a top 6 manager? They don't just come out of the blue. You know, some managers have got to get there.
Here's the thing: is Graham Potter a top 6 manager? Was he at Brighton a top 6 manager?
No, he wasn't.
Was he at Chelsea? Did he get Chelsea in the top 6?
No, absolutely not. He didn't. So
I would argue though that Graham Potter is the West Ham United is the right club for Graham Potter to manage.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah, I remember you said that last time. Yeah.
I do think we go together quite well. And
but a manager's got to, I guess what people are questioning is that what people are now saying is, we had Moyes, for good or bad, we had Moyes, and I agree with you, which is why I can never be dismissive of Moyes. I remember during the critical stages when people kept saying to me, "You're a Moyes lover and you can never criticize him." It's like, well, yeah, I can criticize certain games that he may not have managed well, but overall, I can't criticize him because I never thought at my age I'd ever see West Ham United back in Europe and winning trophies. And then when people are dismissing that trophy as the third-rate European, well, I don't give a fuck. That was a trophy that we won, and we still had to go through a process of trying to beat other teams to get it. So which is why I can't. But then, and you're absolutely right. The criticism that Moyes got, rightly or wrongly, I'm looking at every manager now and thinking, what chance does anyone stand? And when people say, "Oh, we should only get a top," people wanted Amorim. They're 1 place or 2 places above us. There was a time when people wanted Ange Postecoglou. They're 1 or 2 places above us. All right, okay, and then people say, "Yeah, well, they're just having a bad season." Well, you could argue we're having a bad season because we were in the top 6, 7, finished 9th last season, etc. So I don't know when people say we can only do better until we can't do any better until we get a top 6 manager. I don't understand that because.
But it's the one thing I always like to ask people is what do you expect from West Ham? What is your expectations are personal to You know, you ask 10 West Ham fans what they expect, you might get 12 different answers. Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems to be that way. But but the one thing, you know, I've said it before, is that if you're let down by your expectations, just blame the person that looks back at you from the mirror.
Yeah.
It's your expectation. The club itself, we can bang on about why we moved, but we know it's lies.
Yeah.
We've done that. You know, we've done that when we moved in up to 2019 or whatever. We've gone through they lied to a stage. We know it was lies. So
Yeah.
draw a line, deal with it. This is what we got to do. You can't keep going, well, we should be getting top 6 football because that's what they promised us. But that was a lie. We know it's a lie. Forget bringing that up. Now we need to go on. It is part of the problem, but it's until we can get over that. But I don't know if the fan base can, because of the fracturing of the fan base over the move, over Moyes. It's such a fractured fan base now.
It is, and
And
I'll tell you what.
maybe it's because of how many fans we got that go to games.
Go on.
So, you know, well, at Upton Park, they only had 20, 25, 30,000
25,000.
fans to keep happy. Now they've got 50,000
60,000.
fans, 60,000 fans, you know, to keep happy.
Really, you know what? That's a really interesting point. And I was going to mention, I was sent a link to this Man City fan. He does this sort of stuff on YouTube, and he was talking about Man City. And you think like Man City, with all the success that they've had over the years, that they should be cock a hoop, they should be happy. And it's interesting. This fella was going on about the stadium atmosphere, ticket prices, away fans being found in the home end. And it was, if I'd have shut my eyes and didn't listen to his Manc accent, I would have thought it was a West Ham fan talking, you know. And it's like, and it seems that you're absolutely right about they're going through, they're expanding their stadium, as you know, getting more people in there. And then he said that they're only doing it just to get more tourists in rather than hardcore fans. And you've got a good point about saying at Upton Park, it's 25,000 hardcore.
Yeah.
You know, now that 25,000 hardcore is probably diminished to whatever. And but overall, there's 60,000.
I mean, if you believe the figures, you know, and it's hard to quantify because nobody's ever really done a proper thing. The club probably would know, but they would never ever reveal how many season ticket holders from the last 2 seasons at Upton Park no longer go. You know, if you listen to you know, Hammers United, you know, they're saying 50-60% have walked away. That would be 13,000 fans have walked away. But I'd say we regularly we nudge 50,000, in the stadium. So, but that 15,000's walked away. It's been replaced with 15,000 and another 20-odd thousand on top. So the fan base has changed.
I don't want to say it's been watered down, like the hardcore fan base has been watered down, because when hardcore fans leave, it gives other fans who have tried to get season tickets for years an opportunity to get season tickets. And I think we know. You've only got to look at the stadium this season and how many empty seats there have been in almost every home game.
Yeah.
To know that these aren't really hardcore fans.
No, it's and it's funny if you look at the away support. So I'd say 50% of the away support is our age.
Yeah,
at least 50% is our age. Now, I first went to Wolves, I believe it was 1989. Funny enough, we got beat 1-0 by then. And funny enough, the bloke that scored was on the pitch at halftime, Steve Ball. Now, when I was talking to my mate, and I said, when I started going away games 85, 86 properly. Late 80s. It was fans in their mid to early 20s and teenagers. Yeah. You didn't really get old boys at away games. Yeah. Now we are, like it or not, we are old boys.
We are the old boys,
and there's 50% of us. So it does, it does, the demographic of the fan base has aged there, but the new kids, they want to get in, and there is problems there.
It's interesting when I talk to people about the game, and you've met the guys I go to games with, etc. And we'll have a little moan, but we kind of get over it pretty quickly. We'll go, we were shit. Okay, so and so should have done this, so and so, and then we move on. But please forgive me if any young fans are watching, but it seems that the younger fans seem to carry it forward a lot more and get a lot more upset. Or is that unfair? Are we more tolerant? I guess I'm saying,
but in society as a whole, and this is the thing, football is just a snapshot of society. Yeah, if you went out on a Friday night in the late 70s and 80s, there's a good chance you'd see a punch up at the end of the night.
Normally, yeah.
And that was just
and that's beer glasses flying across the dance floor.
And when it happened on the terraces, the politicians were like, "Oh, we've got to stop these football hooligans," but they never really come out and went, "Oh, we got to stop these kids fighting on a Friday night." Elton John wrote a bloody song about it in 1970, didn't he? Saturday nights are all right for fighting.
Saturday nights are right.
When he used to go out, there was always fights in pubs.
Yeah. So that was the reality. Yeah.
And you go out now, perhaps it's because I'm old. Like when I go out for a drink, I don't see the fights that you used to witness. Maybe, I don't drink where the youngsters drink. Maybe there is fighting. Perhaps they can tell us. But you go to football, you don't see the fighting. So but that's how society's changed, isn't it? And it just mirrors society. And what the kids of today want, they want instant gratification. They give up on they've given up on Instagram because TikTok. What's TikTok? Faster. 10, 20 seconds, bang, 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 30 seconds, bang, done. Move on. We want success and we want it now.
So in a roundabout sort of way, then, not that this is a David Moyes show, but on reflection, in David Moyes' early days at West Ham, that was perfect because it was counter-attacking pretty fast, got the goals we needed. Bob's your uncle, we won. And because it's really funny. I look at, going back to Potter, I look at the way Potter sets a team up, and people say it's boring. And there are times when I go, I get it, I understand it, I get what they're saying. And there are other times I'm thinking, if we were a West Ham United in Serie A, people would be watching that and they'd actually be interested in what was going on. He's very tactical in his approach, isn't he? It is slow. It's slow build up, but it doesn't suit the Premier League, does it? Because we want that instant. It's got to be fast. It's got to be rapid. Hence, because what you just said about Nottingham Forest, they play in Moyes' way, the way Moyes was when he first came to us, because it's fast counter-attacking. But they'll sit back for 80% of the game.
Right, and I'll counter that, because what I'll say is, because of the way football's evolved, so the Premier League was always about fast attacking football. English football's a fast attacking football. Then we import the continental coaches in. Because at the end of the day, how many English managers are there? Or how many British managers? Forget English. How many British or Irish managers are there now in the Premier League? Because we've gone down the Iberian route of Portuguese and Spanish managers. So Pep comes over brings his style of football, which is all about keeping the ball. Don't let the opposition have the ball. Now, what happens is the lesser clubs have to find a way to counteract that. And that is actually retreat, defend deep, hit them on the break. So if you look at the way Moyes played at Everton when he first went there, it's totally different to the way he plays now, because Moyes has looked at it and gone, these possession-based teams. So, but that's what Bournemouth are. Yeah, that's what Fulham are. They're possession-based teams. They will pass the ball 40, 50 times. They will gladly go from one wing all the way back to their keeper and all the way to the other wing. Yeah, it's all about keeping the ball. Don't just, in British football, it's about get it in the box, get the big bloke. But we'd have two strikers. Why? Big bloke wins the ball, little bloke feeds off him.
Mm-hmm.
Bang, bang, bang. That was British football from probably from the 1930s, 20s onwards. That's the way it was. So then we get the Continentals coaching that come in and bring in this. So the lesser teams, as we are a lesser team, have to find a way to counteract that.
And counter-attacking was that way.
Or you bring in an Iberian, Lopetegui. Yeah, of course, typical West Ham style. We bring the wrong Iberian in.
Yeah, the only one that.
Yeah, the only one that don't play that type of football. But then again, we had Pellegrini, and it didn't work under Pellegrini. Yeah. But was Pellegrini afforded a fair crack of the whip? 18 months.
Well, he spent a lot of money.
No, but so, it's just
spent a lot of money.
And it's just a washing machine, though, isn't it? Or the helter-skelter, as I like to call it.
This has been, and this is another problem with my concern about people going on about Potter out, because as you and I know, and we've talked about this before, every time you change manager, that manager, I remember you said this several times, you change manager, that manager comes in with different ideas, different styles, and before you know it, it's rather than an evolutionary change in the squad, it's a revolutionary change because he ain't got the players he needs. And this is a big fear coming up this summer. And this is why I'm kind of like, I can't be that Potter out. I think it's way, way, way too early to
give him till Christmas. That. For me, I've said before, realistically, if you thought about it, you got to give him till Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once he's had a summer window.
Yeah.
Once he's had those 10 games or whatever. And like Garino's just more or less said the same thing. He's inherited a bit of a Frankenstein team with like a bit Moyes players, Lopetegui players, etc. And
the best players in that team are still the players hung over from early Moyes'
some of the early days.
It's the funny thing is we were talking about Wolves when you look at it, is that if you look at the longevity of the players that we've got and how we come about them and where we got them from. So if you look at Creswell, I thought Creswell was unlucky to be hooked at half time.
Do you know what? I mean, as much as we say about older players, one thing Potter will do is, as much as he will go out and bring the average age of the squad down, it won't surprise me if players like Creswell stay, because he can see the value in what Creswell can offer. I agree with you. I think Creswell did all right.
So you got Creswell, we got out of Ipswich, who were in the Championship. Bowen, hands down our best player at the moment. Yeah, you'd say. So we got him out of the Championship from Hull. Didn't come through in the Premier League academy. Neither did Creswell. Neither did Michael Antonio, who at the end of the day has been our best scorer for, he's our top Premier League scorer, head and shoulders. What's he got? 65, 67 Premier League goals. Who's behind him? I think is 47, isn't it? It's behind him. So, and considering he's not a striker, and there are strikers in that list, that Antonio has served his club well, and he came from non-league via Sheffield Wednesday and Nottingham Forest when Forest was shit. So again, I think West Ham now have lost sight the fact that here's 3 players here who have been great servants to the club and first team stalwarts, and yet we sort of ignore that MO because it's the ownership, isn't it? We've got no brand. But it goes back to changing managers. Every time they change the manager, it was for a different manager with a different style.
Yeah.
So obviously, like Potter don't play the way Lopetegui plays, does he? So the players that Lopetegui signed or Stadion signed are going to be, not for him.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's why patience is a virtue. By the way, people, I'm starring some comments. I've seen some questions and comments, so we will come back to them later. Cockney, I've seen yours and several others, so we will come back to them later. But yeah, this is why I can't get on board with, look. Let's look at games in general. Like we talked about the first 3 or 4 games, and they were quite the first 3 or 4. I remember watching the game again, being at the game at Aston Villa, the cup game that we were at, and I was actually quite excited with what I saw. And then I was quite excited with, we've mentioned Chelsea and Arsenal and Villa again away, and it has that intensity has fallen away a little bit. But then, as some people have already alluded to, Potter's been quite unlucky. He's had quite a depleted squad in the time that he's been here. Fulkrug has been out, and Somerville is out, and he's had, the whole Paqueta thing.
So did Lopetegui, mate.
Was it as bad?
Well, at one point he lost Bowen, he lost Antonio.
Yeah.
I think the main front three. Kudos was out banned.
Kudos was banned. Yeah.
4 games after Lopetegui had injuries to deal with in his main front players. So yeah,
So it was Lopetegui hard done by, and is Potter being hard done by at the moment?
Yeah. But look, at the end of the day, fans can fans can, if people want to be Potter out, that's their right. They're fully entitled to be Potter out. But then, those of us that ain't are fully entitled to go, why that's stupid, or why we think it's stupid. It might not be stupid. I don't know if Potter's going to be what is success now. What is success for West Ham? What is success? You ask the people. People tell us, what do you think is a successful season for West Ham? But then, because I take it in the context of how the Premier League is set up at the moment, and it's very difficult to break in. If you look at the money Forest spent,
and they have spent.
This ain't the team that brought them up
as well, because they've overspent. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. This ain't the team that brought them up, but they've been clever, because what their owner did, he's not a silly man. He owns Olympiacos, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's right. He does. Yeah.
And that's a team. This is an owner that owns a football team that wins things.
Yeah.
So what he will do is, what he's looked at it and gone, I'll spend the money my way. And what they've worked out is they could take the points hit, take the fine, but if you finish third like they are now, they've got their money back.
Yeah.
The thing about it is what is hamstringing football at the moment on football clubs, and it ties in with ticket prices, the whole lot.
Yeah, you said this before.
FFP, PSR, yeah. Now we're being told, football clubs are being told, you can only spend, owners can't put their money in. You can only spend this. This is why Man City are going out and doing what they're having to do with Viagogo, because even Man City's owners now can't throw £400-500 million out of it. It's they're cracking down on the crooked sponsorship. Now we could say quite rightly, but what that does is it closes the shop in a way to those that can't break the rules.
Those teams that have got there and have got that money will always have it, and we now can never get there.
We can look at we can look at it and go, well, Forest have done it, but Forest broke the rules
to do it.
Now they've paid the fine and had the points penalty, and they've got away with it. And you know, at me, I go, well done. You know, because
it's a massive gamble.
Yeah, it is a
It's a
massive,
massive.
and that's
It's a
the thing.
massive
It is a massive gamble,
and
and
it's kind of paid off at the moment. It's paying off for
at the
them, but it's
moment,
interesting what you say.
yeah,
How will they fare next season
you know,
when they're in Europe
yeah, we don't.
and Premier League as well?
Yeah, it's you know, even if you look at Villa have done well actually. You know, they got into Europe, then they got into Champions League, but this season a drop off. But what did Villa do that we didn't do? They went out in January. They brought in Rashford
and they spent money
and brought in Asensio. Is it the striker who's got 8 goals, I think, in 10 games?
And what they're doing is what we should be doing by being able to do that. Is they're not afraid to sell a player for big money.
And when you look at it, I would say, in criticism of the club, is years ago, Marcus Rashford was available, a club like West Ham would be on the list. But at the moment, we're not on the list to get players of that caliber. So if a player can't get in the Man United team, they really should have been looking at a club like West Ham to come and join. But we're not getting that.
Hence how we got Lingard a couple of seasons
back.
back.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
So, okay, just to go off piece for a second then, when you've mentioned about other players coming, there's an awful lot of talk about this man.
Yeah.
That apparently we are, apparently, according to all the ITKs and all the journos, all the other clubs that were remotely interested in him are dropping like flies, to quote just about everyone that said that. Dropping like flies, which making it easier for West Ham to go and get Jonathan David, one of the hottest strikers out there at the moment, on a free. And apparently the agents have spoken to
Sean. Sorry.
The agents have spoken to Potter and are impressed. Now, you've just hit the nail on the head. You know, a couple of years back, I would have gone, yeah, we're in Europe. We're striving to go from one European competition to another, etc. Yeah. But just like you said about Marcus Rashford, you know, the only way is down when you're at a club like Man United. So you look at what's the next best thing. West Ham's the next best thing. Is someone like Jonathan David coming to West Ham United, or is Sean talking bollocks?
The funny thing is that the stories you get is, oh, there's been no contact, and then, oh, there has been contact.
Yeah, and loads of it as well.
So it's quite funny. I don't really pay attention. So I generally don't really pay attention. I don't even listen to him anymore. So I don't really know. Jonathan, to be truthful, I've not really watched French football this season, or I've not really watched European football this season. So I couldn't tell you a lot about Jonathan David. I'm not going to sit here and pretend and go, oh, it'd be a fantastic sign. I don't know. It could be, it could not be. But on a free, worth a gamble, isn't it?
Well, it's worth a gamble. But I guess my point really was, if there are teams like Arsenal looking for a striker, and Barcelona looking for a striker, and other teams that are in the Champions League, and little old West Ham come along, you know, a couple of years back, I might have gone, yeah, we might stand a chance. You know, well,
at the end of the day, the thing is, you say, and all right, yeah, people do accuse me talking West Ham down, little old West Ham. At the end of the day, we are a London club that holds some weight. We are a club that that has won something recently. So, you know, we are a club. Footballers may enjoy playing in the London Stadium because it's a large stadium, so they may see that as a draw. You know, then it's not like Jonathan David sitting on social media going, West Ham fans don't like Stratford, I'm not going there. You know, he can be sold a club. We are an established Premier League club, and that's twofold. One, he can get Premier League wages from West Ham. Two, he might think shop window. Yeah,
go to West Ham for a season or two.
Yeah,
see how I get on.
Yeah. You know, you look at Kudus and Paquetá. Paquetá's only with us because he's got this court case hanging over him. If he didn't have this court case, we know he'd be in sky blue.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So Kudus, he blows it on. But then again, when these players, there is no loyalty in football, is there?
No.
You know, clubs will ditch a player as quick as anything once they're finished with them, and players will ditch clubs once they think they're finished with the clubs.
Yeah. 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 But that gets me back onto Potter, because if Potter has spoken to his entourage and they're impressed with what Potter has to say, you know, does that mean that yet again, we as a fan base, we think we know better, and yet there are players like Jonathan David who are apparently impressed with Potter's image, vision. It's for the long term. I know you said Potter fits us and we fit Potter. I think, and I do think it will get better. But it goes back to the what's better and what's success under Potter. What would the fans accept under Graham Potter to say, okay, I know people are talking about the football itself is boring, but in terms of success,
you say fans, but it's because there's so many different, like you got the fans that were fed up with the way Moyes played football, and quite rightly, I ain't got a problem. Look, you know, let's get this right. For everything Moyes done to West Ham, the football was dreadful at the end of his tenure, and it was a natural thing to do, rightly or wrongly. It's always easy to look back after someone's gone, oh, we should have done something. And unfortunately, it was on David Moyes to show that he was worthy of, that he could change. The David Moyes that's gone to Everton seems to be a different David Moyes that we had at the end of his tenure. Yeah.
The absolute irony of it. Yeah.
So
but a lot of people are saying he'll go back to typing.
Well, we'll see, isn't it? At the end of the day, we'll see. But look, that era's over. It's gone and finished with. But those people will want to be looking. They're going to want top 6, top 7. They're going to want European football. Yeah.
So that will be the rate of success for Potter.
Could be 8th spot, and this is the mad thing about this season, because 5th. Champions
I'm going to go back to what a lot of people were saying when we were under Moyes. People were saying back then, I'd be happy to lose if we played well. Now, at the moment, we're not playing well, but we're not necessarily losing.
No.
So, under Potter, what success? If I read people right, success under Potter could mean, so long as we're playing well, we'll be happy to lose. Is that what I'm getting? You know, or are people going to turn around? People going to turn around by Christmas and go, "We're in the bottom." Hey, we're playing brilliantly under Potter, but we're in the bottom 3. So what on earth's going on?
When Allardyce turned up, you know, I probably would have been classed as a ranter and raver. Yeah, I didn't want him at the club. I thought he was the Darth Vader of football. You know, the fact that we had to, you know, only West Ham at its lowest point after its worst manager would turn to the likes of Sam Allardyce. Maybe as I got older, I think, well, you know, not really. That weren't really fair on Allardyce, and it weren't as bad as, you know, I painted it at the time. I mean, to the point that I've only just started using his name properly, as you know. You know, before I wouldn't even. Fat Sam or Big Sam.
Are you still listening to his podcast?
Yeah, I still do. Yeah, so
yeah, bloody hell, mate. You soon be putting a photo of him in the background there.
Well, funny enough,
one of the greatest West Ham managers ever.
In the Princess Alex pub on Tuesday week, I'm hosting a night with Kevin Nolan, where I'm the compere. So I will be interviewing Kevin Nolan. And it's quite funny because when Nolan was signed, I thought, here we go, son of Sam. And I even wrote in Overland and See about the boltification of West Ham, and that this is going to be a ruination of us. He's always
going to go back over those days when you...
Well, there's sometimes... Listen, I'm big enough to go, look, I got it wrong. I was wrong about Kevin Nolan.
Okay.
And you know, I'm embarrassed to say, I think his first goal that he scored at Upton Park, I don't even think I celebrated. I think I just sat in my chair And that's wrong. At the end of the day, that is wrong. I was wrong to do that, but I will admit it. At the end of the day, because I did it. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. So, you can be changed, over time, and maybe with Moyes, people will see things differently. But in regards Potter, fans of, let's call them the Moyes boys, yeah, they'll want to see winning football, top 6, top 7. Let's call it the West Ham Way boys, yeah. The West Ham Way boys will want to see us passing football, attacking football, yeah, but playing through how we used to play, and at the end of the day, if you look back at the teams of the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, we had a player that could excite us. 60s, 70s, 80s, Trevor Brooking, yeah, who could beat 2 players by shuffling his shoulders, and I ain't lying. He was that good. We had Di Canio turned up in the 90s, early 2000s. Then we had Payet. Throughout the eras, we've had these players that have entertained us, that you would pay money. I would pay money just to go and watch Di Canio play. I would pay money just to watch Payet play.
Yeah.
If you look at this team and the team that we've had probably for the last 7, 8 years, it's been devoid of that player that fans would pay just to come and see. We haven't got that player.
We thought we got it under Paqueta.
Yeah.
And then we thought we got it under Kudus.
Yeah.
And and one of those may come back and turn it on next season. I don't know. Could do. But I get your point. Because even if the rest of the team were dull, you knew there was one player. But isn't that another problem of West Ham United over the years, that we've been kind of not a one-man team, but it felt like we've always relied on that one iconic player to turn it on for us.
But it's always been that way, isn't it? And this is the thing, history can teach you many things. And it can teach you about what type of football club, and that's why I do it. What type of football club West Ham is. As I told someone the other day, and they didn't believe me, and they came back and went, actually, I'd never see it like that. You were right. West Ham's the biggest club in Europe that's never won the league title in its own country. So when you look at, when they publish these fake financial lists, as I call them, the Forbes lists or whatever, at the end of the day, it's inflated because of Premier League money. But when you look at where we are situated in, and you look at all the other foreign clubs that are in that list as well, they've all won the leagues in their clubs, in their countries. We haven't.
Yeah.
And we've only won the FA Cup 3 times. That ain't a lot. 125 years now, a football club, and we've only won the FA Cup 3 times. We've not won the League Cup. So literally, we've won 5 trophies, 5 major trophies in our history. Yet, for some reason, I don't know, a lot of fans think we should be competing with the likes of the Man Uniteds and the Mans,
But this goes back to your point earlier on about the dream that we were sold, or the lie that we were sold about moving stadiums. And the worst thing that the current owners could have ever said was, we'll be playing Champions League football in 5 years or whatever the target
15
was.
years later, we've been close to it. We've been within, I think we've been within 2 wins of it on 3 occasions.
That's how close we've been.
Yeah, Moyes under Bilic.
Under Bilic, I forget that. I forget how close.
You forget it, and the weird thing is, I wouldn't have swapped it for the world. Yeah. But we lost to Swansea and we lost to Stoke. Either side of beating Man United.
Yeah.
Should have beat Swansea. Should have beat them. The season we was having. Stoke, we were 1-0 up at half time. We should have beat them. You win them games. Champions League football.
Yeah. But that one night in at the Boleyn was worth.
It just
nothing mattered after that game.
No, it didn't.
It didn't, did it? It didn't. I mean, as much as we were that close, it kind of did felt like no, it did. Yeah, we lost, but
Yeah, I went
night, just kind of
I
like
mean, I went to Stoke on the Sunday, and we were still all on a high
because of that night. Yeah.
from the
All
from
right,
that
let's
night.
move on to other things then. So, I think what we're concluding with Potter is we can't. I get fans' frustration because we want to see different football. I personally think that it may not come before the end of this season. I think maybe we've got another 8 games of. When it comes to the game tomorrow, I'm worried about the game tomorrow. I'm not worried about
Yeah.
losing the game tomorrow. I'm more worried about the atmosphere at the stadium
Well,
tomorrow.
look, it's going to be flat. There's going to be apathy. Bournemouth, are not a big draw. They're not a big club. Half and half sellers will probably be lacking.
Like a hoop.
Yeah. Because that's the only thing that's increased at the London Stadium, apart from ticket prices, is the half and half scarf sellers. And if they're turning up, that tells you all you need to know, because they will go where the money goes. We know the type of fan that buys an half and half scarf. And the fact that there's more of them at the stadium, and
It does surprise me when I see fans walking
well,
around.
I know a scarf seller, so even he's surprised the amount that are over there now.
Well,
So
what let's look at the team that he put out against. Let's briefly, not for too long, let's briefly talk about what happened on Tuesday against Wolves. Were you surprised by the lineup? Like, especially, I'm guessing Ferguson and Guilherme starting.
Well, we had the thing is, because of the international break. Well, we played really well, I thought, at Everton.
Yeah, I did too, and I know even fans slagged that performance off as well.
Did they?
Yeah, unfortunately they did. Yeah, yeah.
Right, okay.
But I thought it was a half decent performance.
It made sense, to give Ferguson a start. I don't know if it made sense to take him off at half time or not. I don't know.
Did you think I mean, I looked at what he did, and I know he people are saying, fans are saying that the miss, that the chance that Bowen created for him was just behind him.
It was behind him, wasn't it? Because I was down that end. You was up the other end.
No, I was down the side. Oh no,
right.
I was at the other end. You're absolutely right.
So you was up sort of the but I was down that end, and it was slightly behind him, and the player got a block on it.
Okay,
maybe
I was a little bit harsh on him then. But did you see? In all honesty, you said he's as harsh to have taken him off. Did you actually see much of him to say he deserved to stay on for the second half?
And these, years ago, when there was only 1 or 2 subs, he might have popped up in the 80th minute and got the goal. But because of 5 subs now, not afforded that luxury, and it goes back to this, in a way, the instant gratification. The kid's been given 45 minutes and then hooked. Now, he might have put away. He might have been the one that was on the Souček when he danced through. That could have been Ferguson. Yeah, he might have got on the end of one of the crosses in the area that Fulkrug didn't get on the end of. We don't know because he weren't on the pitch. And I don't see what giving him 45 minutes really does for him or his confidence whatsoever. So I don't think it was fair on him. I don't.
I'm going to be honest with you. It didn't surprise me that he was taken off. I didn't see enough of him to suggest that he could have improved.
All right. Was we that much better in the second half than we were in the first?
We were more direct in the second half. We were trying, although it weren't working as well, but we were trying to target Fulkrug. Look. I think the jury's out on Fulkrug, but I think he was offering what I was hoping Ferguson would offer. What would he was offering in the second half, Fulkrug, what I was hoping Ferguson was going to offer in the first half, which was that sort of that big striker up front, getting the ball to
Bully boy
you.
striker, uses his weight, pushes
Kind
central defenders about.
Kind of. Yeah.
Ferguson's not that type of player. I don't think
Well,
he was
he's
at
not.
Brighton.
He's not. But I think Fulkrug was better because we played a different way to accommodate him. I guess is what I'm thinking. I didn't see Ferguson, even if he isn't that type of striker. I didn't see enough of him for me to think he'll be a success at West Ham. You know, and ironically, I think
But
next season.
All right, still, how many minutes has he played?
I know that. But then, how many minutes has Fulkrug played? And yet, he looked better in the second half.
No, but yeah, but Fulkrug is 31, 32. He's coming to the end of his career. Ferguson isn't. Ferguson will get better. He will get better.
I'm not convinced.
You're not?
No, I'm not. And ironically, I think that and I agree with you.
He scored for the Republic of Ireland.
He did. And maybe it's, you know, maybe if anyone should know how to play to his strengths, it should have been Potter. But I've got a suspicious feeling that we will not make a bid for him in the summer. And I think we're actually going to keep Fulkrug on for another season.
To be honest, I think Fulkrug has been unlucky with injuries. He hasn't really suffered an injury-plagued season for a good few years. I think he's shown in the games that he's played, he could be a great asset to us, even at the times that he's come on late, and like Leicester, isn't it? What did he have? 10 minutes at Leicester and nicked a goal. Yeah, it was 3-1, and whatever. But he still got on the end, didn't he? He still got in and got the goal.
I guess that's what I'm sort of saying about him. He's got that knack. We know
he knows how to
ability.
score a goal. He knows where the back of the net is.
And, yeah.
And it was unfortunate. The funny thing is, he hit the bar, but I think when they're an offside anyway, so if it had dropped in, that it would have been flagged for offside anyway.
Yeah,
when he hit the bar. But that shows you that it was a flat performance. I don't know why. I doubt if the players know why. These things happen. They're human beings. Maybe it's because the international break. The players that didn't go to international duty hadn't played for 2 weeks and ring rusty, and the players that were on international duty might have felt tired because they haven't had a break. Who knows? Is it the first time we've gone to Wolves and got beat? No, it ain't.
No, it ain't. Yeah.
So it's the thing that I was surprised. I think was it Wolves' 3rd or 4th home win of the season.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So they've not been great there, have they?
Yeah, their new manager Pereira has actually done what Potter has kind of more or less done at West Ham. He
ain't, because he's won games.
Well, he's had to stop goal. He's had to stop the goals being leaked in. They got the 4th worst goals against in the league. He stopped that, but he seems to have gotten them now to a point where he's stopped that, and now he's got them beginning to play actually quite decent football. And I guess when it comes to Potter, that's what they're looking at. They're looking at, like a manager like Pereira and going, well, if he can do it, what's wrong with Potter? How come Potter isn't? But it's not that cut and dried, is it? It's not that easy to say, well, just because that manager's doing it, the other manager can do it as well. But that game, I think the lineup, people are also complaining about a back five. We look worse when we play a back five. Now, I don't mind. I don't mind a back three, so long as we're allowing our fullbacks to maraud forward. Now, Wolves did a job on us on Tuesday night because I hardly saw Wan-Bissaka marauding forward. And of course, Scars was taken off and Emerson was brought on to go a bit further. Well, Emerson had a great chance, didn't he, when he came on?
Did. Yeah.
You know, he had a good chance and he went to a scissor kick or whatever it was he was trying to do. But they did a job on us. Wan-Bissaka didn't have a great game. Bowen didn't have a great game. You know, so it's like you said, it was one of those games where not just for me, Ferguson didn't play well, and I felt a little bit sorry for Guilherme, out of position, etc., thrown in the deep end. But Bowen didn't have a good game. Paqueta, for me, people say he had a good game, but a lot of the stuff he does hardly comes off.
The thing for me, you know, and it, you know, maybe, just maybe, if he played 4 at the back, 4 in the middle, 2 up front, that would afford you the protection wide. Yeah. So you've got 2 that can team up. Because when you look at that, we've got these 1 players that are wide, the others are tucked in. We don't get protection properly of the fullbacks. So if you get past the fullback, you've got to run down the wing. You got to run on the defence. And the problem is, someone did allude to it. We ain't got any real pace, have we? Bowen's not real pace.
Not real pace, no.
He can. What Bowen does for me really well is runs with the ball at his feet. Yeah, so he ain't got blistering pace, but he can do that in other ways. In that he can keep the ball well, he can run with it well at his feet, and he can beat a player with a ball at his feet. And he's good at coming in, cutting in, and sliding that left wing cross. Look, people, I get it. I don't know if Ferguson's going to be any good or not, but he's a young kid, and I don't think he's been afforded the minutes for him to be judged properly on whether he'll be a success at West Ham or not. The downside for him is that he's had 2 chances you would hope he would score, and both times he's delayed it and the defender got the block. Yeah. It's a confidence thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and if he was a bit sharper, I guess, and so on.
He was banging the goals in, not left, right, and centre, but he was the big young thing, wasn't he? 2 years ago.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what we do, because I think it was interesting that Brighton wanted us to buy him with an obligation, and we didn't want that. So maybe Brighton are not seeing that, you know. Look. And Brighton are quite canny with their sales, their transfers. Yeah. You know, they want to get a good price on players, and we didn't agree to that. And then in the end, they let us have him for no obligation at all. So maybe even Brighton aren't seeing what. Yeah, he is young. Look, he could get better.
Let me make it easier for the people that think I'm. At this moment in time, would I sign Ferguson on a full-time deal? No. I wouldn't. But what I would be doing is playing him, giving him as many minutes as needed for us to make that as an informed decision. Because at the moment, I think he's played about 130 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you're telling me you can make a decision on a striker on 130 minutes of football, nah.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. So that's where I am at this moment. If he didn't play another game for West Ham, I wouldn't sign him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. If I was Potter, I wouldn't be signing him, because you can't. We haven't got the money to throw on. We're not in that position at the moment.
On a chance. Yeah.
On a chance. But the season's got fuck all now. Play the lad. Play him against Bournemouth. Let's see what he does. Well, because if he keeps drawing a blank, at least we know and go, we gave him a chance. It didn't work. We move on.
Well, this is the team I think could be lining up. I think Potter will change it tomorrow. I think he will. I know he prefers to have a back 3 or a back 5 or whatever, but I think he'll change it tomorrow. I think there'll be quite a lot of changes. I actually think he's going to start Fulkrug tomorrow. Yeah. It's almost tomorrow. It's another hour.
Funny enough, we've not really seen a lot of Fulkrug though, have
Well,
we?
you've
And
not seen a lot of Fulkrug, but I guess I'm only going by what I saw against Wolves in the first half. Ferguson, in the second half, Fulkrug, and my gut tells me that he's likely to start Fulkrug tomorrow, and we're likely to have quite a lot of changes to the team that played on Tuesday night. Kudus apparently is back. Souček will be back. Alvarez is back. Tadebo's back. You know, I think if he goes with a 4 at the back, he will drop Skulls, because I think it gives us Emerson gives us that bit more of maturity, experience. You know, so it could be quite a different team. You look at the team that was put out there on Tuesday, the starting lineup. You know, you're talking about maybe 5-6 changes to that lineup, which is quite a lot. And I know many people have questioned, well, why didn't Souček start? Why didn't Alvarez start? My understanding is there was a bit of fatigue from Alvarez from coming back from the internationals. I think Souček might have been just a little bit, maybe a small knock during internationals. So I kind of beginning to understand it was more a pragmatic approach that he used, the likes of Guilherme, for example, in that game against Wolves. But I think he's going to go for something a little bit more. I'm saying a 4-3-3. Could be a 4-2-3-1, something like that.
Yeah, we talk about Ferguson. We've not even mentioned Guilherme.
Thoughts?
We didn't warrant. To be fair, didn't warrant a mention, did he? Because there was nothing
that we see there to mention
from him to mention. But again, it's someone that the difference between him and Ferguson is we've paid money for him, 20-odd million, and it ain't looking good, you know. And when you look at it, we two Stadion buys that we know hands down with Stadion buys, Guilherme and Fulkrug.
Yeah.
Fulkrug, good player. Wrong for West Ham because he's too old. Yeah, for where we want to be, because he's only here for 2-3 seasons max because of his age anyway. And then Guilherme, too young. We're not in a position to buy. Even Stadion's come out and said West Ham really weren't in a position to buy a 17-year-old. He might be a great player when he's 21. We ain't to spend that 50 million on someone too old and someone too young in the position where West Ham were. Big mistake.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but it looks like we might be stuck with him next season, Fulkrug. And so long as he stays injury free, he might not be a bad.
I wouldn't use the word stuck. I like him. I do like him because
there's something about him, isn't there?
He's a
that you know, if he starts scoring goals, I think he'll score a handful.
If you imagined him, let's keep going 4-4-2. But if you imagined him, in a 4-4-2 with someone up front with him, and we had wingers that could ping the ball into the box. The problem with that is you would have to play Bowen on the left.
On the left. Well, what I saw in training, I remember because I watched the training videos that West Ham put out, and what was interesting was how they were using Mohamed Kudus before he went injured in the game before the game against Wolves. They were using Kudus as almost like an inside left, but then the ball was being. This was in training. The ball was being played out wide. He was going and getting that ball and crossing it in to the box. So if he is fit tomorrow, and my understanding is he is, he ain't the best crosser of the ball, but that might be a ploy that we use tomorrow, where Kudus plays on that kind of just behind the striker kind of thing, maybe a bit wider and getting the box to Fulkrug is probably what I think could happen tomorrow. And that might work. That might work. Because the one thing you see Fulkrug do, he attacks the ball when it gets into the box.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, I've not seen highlights. I don't know if he got kicked in the head. Was it a penalty or not?
No,
I've not seen.
His head was too low.
Oh, right. Okay.
His head was too low. Yeah. So, no. You know, because that was right in front of us, and I went, "Oh shit, he's kicked him." And then I saw how low he was. It's like, well, it's not as if the player raised his foot up here. Like that, Fulkrug was quite low. All right, thoughts on tomorrow? What do you think the result? Because I'm going to ask you if there are a few questions that I want to go through, which you may or may not be.
I'll tell you what. Let me look because I've done my Super 6.
Okay.
So let's stick to what I've done here. What did I put? View predictions. I put West Ham 1, Bournemouth 0. Believe it or not, blimey,
But I've
caught me
said
on a good
2-1.
day there.
I've said 2-1 for tomorrow.
Yeah,
I've
and
said
fun enough,
2-1.
I did that Thursday, so that's after the Wolves game. Yeah,
Right.
So,
Let me go into some questions that people have asked. So let's scroll to the right. So Stephen asked, do you think West Ham will be busy in the summer transfer window if Graham Potter is still in charge? Now, as I said, I think we could have. I mean, we've had 25 of 28 of our squad players. 25 of them have been linked with another club. So clearly, that ain't going to happen, is it?
No. I mean, at the end of the day, we've got to. Yeah, it's. I don't know where the money's going to come from. Truthfully, I don't. The club have probably got going to find 30-40 million pound to put in the kitty, plus whatever we can get from player sales. So
is a big player going in the summer?
I think that's a given. Maybe.
Who's your money on?
Maybe 2. I think Kudus. There was a thing in the Athletic today that Kudus's release clause. Do you want me to read it out?
Yeah,
It was a bit different.
I've heard about this. Apparently, he's got 2
10 days. Yeah, he's got 10 days in July. And if he goes to Saudi Arabia, the release clause is 120 million. But if he goes to
pounds
Europe,
or euros?
Pounds, I believe.
Pounds. All right.
If he goes to Europe, then it is. Here we go. So he's under contract to 2028 with an option for 12 months. But it does have release clauses. It's only active for the first 10 days of July. 80 million for European clubs, pounds. 85 for another Premier League, but 120 million for a Saudi team. And that's David Ornstein, who's quite a clued up journalist.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, we've always said that Kudus will probably give us 2 seasons and then go. He hasn't looked happy. I don't know if you've noticed, Nigel, in games, in the rare occasions that we've scored lately, he's one of the last to go and celebrate. Have you noticed that? So, you score a goal, all of a sudden, all the players are rushing over. And Kudus is like, he walks over as if like, okay, yeah, I need to join in.
Do you know what? He had a good game against Arsenal.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're going to say. I know where you're going. Go on.
So then before that, he was a bit hit or miss. He played really well against Chelsea. And he had I think he was decent against Man City.
There you go. So he's turning it on for the teams that might have an interest in him.
Yeah, of course I'm being harsh. Of course I'm picking on him, before the people chime in. I know what I'm doing, but at the end of the day, that's what I've seen, and I'm not the only one. I know other people have seen that as well.
I mean, I'd like to. I mean, with players going. I mean, we've got 6 or 7 players out of contract and so on and so forth. There's already going to be wholesale changes, but I've actually said out of the players, that the high profile players, if Paqueta gets away with this FA hearing, I think he'll be gone. And it might just save us keeping Kudus next season. But when that sort of money starts coming in or being offered, it would be hard to turn down, wouldn't it? I guess.
Well, and players have to be sacrificed if
to improve the
we've got to improve the first team.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
And the one thing that we know is what we talked about earlier is Potter and Macaulay aren't afraid to sell good players.
No.
And they've proven.
No, but at Brighton, they had a team behind them. Yeah.
The data
and
analysis
the
and all
data
that.
analysis and everything. It's almost like they've got this list of players that, right, if this bloke goes, we buy him. If this one leaves, we buy him. It's like the list is already there. Like if this manager leaves, we're hiring him. And if he leaves us, then we're gonna, it's like they know like
well in advance who they're
like
going to.
Ursula. And this is the weird thing about Brighton is that I don't know. It's a weird thing with Ursula because they sort of fell off a bit, but they're still close. They could have their highest Premier League finish. They might not. But look where he came from. I don't think he'd managed. I'm pretty sure he'd never managed in the top flight of Bundesliga. He'd only managed in Bundesliga 2.
But they're not afraid to go and get managers like that, like De
No,
Zerbi.
what is he, 32 years of age?
32, 33 years old, yeah.
Jesus Christ, I've got T-shirts older than him. I'm not joking.
Question from Anthony. Have Potter and Sullivan got a clause in Potter's contract that at the end of the season, and it hasn't gone well, there's a mutual agreement that both parties... I thought that it was an 18 months. Is there a clause? Are you aware of anything like that?
I've read something.
Or would you even believe that?
In a month, I mean, clauses could. The thing about it, what we do know is Potter had turned West Ham down before. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could understand that he may have wanted a clause. We know Sullivan don't mind a clause. Who knows? Only those people know. Only the agents and the people that sign the contract know what clause is there and what clause isn't. At the end of the day, so what if it is there? At some point in the next 4 years, Potter will leave this club.
Yeah,
because that seems to be the lifespan now.
After 3 poor seasons, Ian's asking, under 3 different managers, is it time to point some of the blame towards the players?
Yeah. It's that's a tough one because I think in individual games, there have definitely been games where you can point the finger at the players. In individual, as a whole, I think it's it starts at the top. The problem, West Ham won't ever be the club that the majority of people that seem to think they should be with this ownership. So until this ownership leaves and new owners come in who will throw the money about and not come in and buy the stadium because that's dead money. Yeah, come in and invest in a football team. This is what we're going to be under this ownership model. This is what we'll be. And realistically, you need an owner that's going to want to come in and break PSR.
Just like you said about Nottingham Forest, the way they've done it there.
But that's the only way.
Take that risk, take that gamble, pay the penalty, and see where it gets us. Yeah.
Because if you look, even Villa have sailed close to the wind, didn't they?
Very close. Yeah.
Yeah,
very close.
But
this is where a good transfer policy comes into play, isn't it? Because if we start buying, the right players at the right age at the right price, get them to be decent players and then sell them on for a profit, PSR is not a problem anymore. So long as you're keeping ahead of the game, and I think that's one thing. I think the next thing that will happen, I think there's going to be quite a lot of outcry this coming summer because, as you say, if we end up selling a couple of the big names and then we go out and get ourselves some unknowns, for like 15 mil, I've said I don't think we'll buy a player more than 25 mil. I'd be surprised, and I think the fans will then go, I think the fans will use that as a stick on Potter again to go, it's the wrong player. He's gotten rid of Paqueta. He's gotten rid of Kudus. Look who he's brought in. Who's that? Who's that player from the Paraguayan league? And all that sort of stuff. But that's the model he knows, or that's the model he worked under at Brighton, which kind of worked for him.
Yeah. The funny thing is, when he went to Chelsea, he bought 4 or 5 players from Brighton.
He did.
And
Yeah.
It didn't work for him.
Well, they're still there, though. There's still the left back and that everyone hates.
Yeah, but it didn't work for Potter, yeah.
Didn't work for Potter, though, no, yeah. But then it was a bit of a... Chelsea was a bit of a basket case when he went there, though.
Yeah.
So... There's another question here. Dean, are either of you confident we will be more positive next season? I'm worried that Potter's time at Brighton was functional, but hardly entertaining for much of his tenure.
Hardly entertaining. And this is, it's enough. It opens the door to this. What do people want? Entertainment. What is entertaining football? Is the way Man City play entertaining? What makes passing the ball 55 times before you decide to have a shot entertaining? We've all got our own different ideas of what entertainment is.
I'll tell you, it's been entertaining is the team we talked about earlier is Nottingham Forest.
They have been. But here's the thing.
But their possession is probably as much as what
they're entertaining because they're winning games.
Yeah.
They're winning games by having 30% possession.
Yeah.
So they're doing it by defending a lot, catching people on the break.
Yeah.
Didn't
that happen under some Scottish man?
Yeah, but that weren't entertaining, was it? Still.
This is an interesting one because Cockney has asked, have we discussed the £1 stadium buy yet? I want to know why West Ham didn't buy the stadium when it changed hands for £1.
Because
the owners are the same owners, aren't they? They're just under a new. That's what I thought. Yeah. So
it was just the pound was just an anomaly, just to show in accounts. It was basically a transfer from one government department to another government department.
That's all. That's what I thought. Yeah. Anthony wants to know: have you got the John Lyle? Have you got? He probably wrote it. And Anthony, have you got the John Lyle autobiography? It's a good read.
I do indeed. It is a good read.
Question for Nigel: why didn't Potter play Ferguson from the day we got him? What is the reason why he's fits a why not play? But I think we've discussed this. I don't think Ferguson was fit from the day we got him, was he? He was coming back from a long injury.
He was coming back from a long excuse me, a long injury. So they probably thought it'd take him 3 or 4 weeks to get up to speed. But then a lot of better players have struggled to fit into the, Sebastian Haller. This is the thing. So many better players have failed to.
And I still maintain to this day, Haller was one of our better strikers that we didn't use properly. But anyway,
yeah. He showed very good glimpses of the type of striker he was.
But people thought he was miserable.
No, and then the problem for Ferguson is as well, he needs a goal. It's like Danny Ings, isn't it? Danny Ings came to us much like Ferguson. Don't get a goal, don't get a goal. Don't, just really, and Danny Ings will be known as that striker that never scored. Or never scored many.
West Ham, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
One question I want to ask you is: there's an awful lot of talk also this week about David Gold, as you know. I don't know where the S came from. David Gold's estate that's been finalised this week, and of course, Sean loves writing about this sort of stuff.
I think I made my point to Sean about. Yeah.
Go on.
Discussing people's wills. It was quite funny because Sean then threw at me, listen, you wanted the man dead. What does it matter? I said, but the man's dead. It don't bother him that his will's discussed in public but it's wrong really for the family. Yes, wills are public documents, but it don't mean someone has to go digging the day it's released and share it all to the under and sundry. What do we learn from it? Not really, nothing. Yeah, except as a Premier League football club owner, fuck me, was he poor?
Yeah.
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 I think he possibly could have been the poorest Premier League football club owner.
Yeah. Yeah. But
there weren't much money left, was there? From because I'd have bet a lot of that 125 million was the shares in West Ham, because if he owns 25% of West Ham and West Ham's worth over 600 million pounds,
that all his wealth was in West Ham.
If he had no money apart from
by the sounds of it, but but I guess what's happened is now, which I think we keep going round in circles in this, is that people now think, you know, that now that the Golds are free to sell more shares of Gold share, but we've had 10% on sale for years, for 2 years, haven't we?
But they've been free to sell them already.
Exactly that, yeah. But people now think that Kretinsky's interest. That I saw an article written in Claret and Hugh, where else? That we're now going to see the metal of Daniel Kretinsky now that these shares are. But that's a load of bollocks, because he's had
to be
the
fair,
right
still,
to buy those shares.
You say it's bollocks, but they've achieved exactly what they set out to achieve.
Go on.
You read it. The people that wrote it know it's fucking bollocks.
Well, it is, isn't it?
Well,
and you're
you read it.
Yeah, and that's what annoys. Yeah.
I read it.
But
Here's a thing, just your analogy. Yeah, they know that Football Insider website, is the biggest made-up pile of crap that goes. Yeah. But it don't stop them emailing senior sources with stories from Football Insider saying, "What do you think of this?" Yeah, they know it's crap, but they just want to write a story to get you to click on it.
And it gets me, because I'll then say, when I do a show, I'll say, because people ask me about, oh, what about this story? What about? And when I turn around and say it's bollocks, it's nothing when I say it, because who am I to say it when such a big? But I'm glad you said the same thing, because I read things and I just laugh, and I do message and go, surely, and then I get silence, because that tells me more than anything. When I don't get a response to this story is a load of bollocks, then I know it's a load of bollocks.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
If
you start at that point, anything he writes, then 95% of the time you're going to be right still. Yeah.
What else should we talk about before we done an hour and a half? It was meant to be a short one.
Yeah. No, there's not really a lot. I'll tell you what I've got. I've got a letter here.
Go on.
It says season ticket holders, West Stand lower tier. Dear sir, we've received numerous complaints about the use of bad language in certain areas of the lower tier. From our records, we have reason to believe that the majority of swearing is coming from seats occupied by season ticket holders. And as such, we are issuing you this general reminder. We all understand the odd swear words slipping out and recognise your right to criticise. This is the club, by the way. You have a right to criticise the team, but non-stop torrents of abuse are totally unacceptable. We're quite often given the explanation that such language is used in society generally, but whilst that may be the case, we are responsible for what goes on within our ground and are not prepared to accept this behaviour. As a result of the complaints, we've instructed the police to increase their resources on the lower tier, take strong action where necessary. And if they consider the language is severe enough to warrant arrest, they will receive our support, and is providing conditions of issue 2, season ticket will be drawn. Football is under the microscope at present, and all of those concerned with its future must make a concerted effort to improve behaviour at the grounds. We hope we can rely on your cooperation. There you go.
Now, knowing you, I would have, if someone read that, they would have gone, especially with what they wrote to the fans about the Chelsea incident, about the,
Yeah. Do you want, could I just throw one thing in? Yeah.
Go on.
That's from March, 18th of March, 1989.
That's what I was going to cut. That's what I was going to come to. That's knowing you. That wasn't recent.
No,
knowing you, that was something from way back.
It was 35 years ago.
It's amusing that they're still writing to us, telling us the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, the Chelsea thing. Oh, I sort of see both sides of the coin, but I know because at the time I got message. A friend of a friend got arrested at the Chelsea game, walking out.
Oh, right.
And he got done for homophobic chanting.
What? Really?
Yep. So and the problem I have with that is, how can you single one out when the whole thing, I never understand when they fine the club because the fans are chanting. It's not like the club can go, stop it, and we'll all stop it. That ain't going to happen.
It ain't going to happen.
I don't want to go down the road about whether I think it's homophobic or not to chant that, but anyway.
What was their evidence for singling him out?
I don't know that I don't know, but unfortunately for him, he got took to the police station. I think he got issued with a temporary banning order by the club. And then it will probably, I'll have to check up to see if it's gone to court yet. Because if he gets found guilty, he'll get a 3-year ban from football.
And he could lose his job over it as well.
It possibly, yeah. And and at the end of the day, I come on the scores. Everybody's got a right to be outraged. Yeah. But that's it. You can be outraged. We move on. The sanitization of football. There was some chance that were too far.
Yeah.
The Chelsea one. I'm not sure it is. Deep down, do I think Chelsea fans are what we sing of them? No, I don't.
No.
Do we sing it? Of course we do.
Cool, yeah.
It's just that's. I don't know. Welcome to 1984. I think George is. Yeah, I think George is right. I think it's. It's. For me, it's political as well, because this is something that's going on in society separately, yeah, and they're bringing it on the football fans' door and using it with a stick to beat us.
Yeah.
And if they left us alone, it would sort itself out anyway. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, ironically, when I go to games, especially away games, there are certain songs I won't get myself involved in.
No,
I just clam up. But I laugh at some of that. I mean, West Ham fans are kind of renowned for their, their banter, their mocking and stuff like that. And do they go too far? I don't know. Any further than any other fans? I don't know either about that. I don't know.
Well, in the past, look, I've sung the Munich song, yeah. In the past, sung the Tottenham song, though I did refuse to sing the last bit because I thought that was too far. So and I found that last bit of the Tottenham song hard when we had Berkovic. I think it was really that. I thought,
you're like, hang on a minute.
Hold on a minute. We have got Jewish fans. That support West Ham.
But the irony, I know some Jewish fans, West Ham fans, and they kind of laugh at that sort of song.
Yeah, no, the song is funny. It's that last bit, and it don't. The thing about that song is it didn't need that last bit. It don't.
I guess.
Yeah, you leave the song alone like that, and whatever. But anyway, so look, in the past, you know, when we're young, we all do stupid things, don't we? And when we're in a big crowd, we all get
you
caught
get
up in the
carried away.
moment.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't. You know, I was sitting in the Chelsea end, wasn't I? At the Chelsea game, heard the West Ham fans all singing it. Not sure the 10 Chinese kids were singing it, to be fair.
Where
But
did
anyway,
they come from?
well, China. But
I don't know if they were Chinese or
I
whatever they were, but it was quite odd in the Oasis.
told you the story, didn't I?
No, you did not.
No, no, that these were tickets saved for in case we signed anyone on deadline day, and we didn't. So it just so happened, because we didn't sign anyone, those players we didn't sign weren't bringing any family to the game.
Right.
Yeah. So it just so happens that the club had these 10 tickets for the family of the player that we'd never signed, or the players that we never signed, spare. Didn't know what to do with them. So rung up a international ticket agent that they have dealings with. Yeah. Anyone about that wants to go. And it just so happens this ticket agent, what luck. I've got 10 Chinese kids that support West Ham and want to come.
Are you winding me up?
That is gospel from the ticket office to a certain source. Yeah.
Oh dear.
There you go.
Because I did wonder. I thought, what, who are they? You know, and they must have looked as bemused as we all did. But you know, I don't know that they didn't cheer for anybody.
Oh.
Neither team. They just sat there in silence for the whole game.
All with the same coat on. I think that's
yeah.
See? Let's hope there's no tariffs on those coats.
Well, it might be now. All right. We've done an hour and 40.
Yeah.
Any last words before we go?
No, that's it. That's it. Look, the people are saying, "Oh, if Potter goes, who can we bring in?" Everything. Who knows? That for me, West Ham will be West Ham. This is West Ham. And actually, sometimes I feel reassured that we're like this, because it reminds me that the old West Ham is still here.
It's still here in some guise, yeah.
And quickly, the Man City fans are upset at the legacy Man City fans who, you know, are being told, you've got all this success, you should be grateful.
Yeah,
where a lot of them
interestingly,
think
I don't know if
the
I said it
club's
earlier
changed too much for them.
Yeah, I don't know if I said it earlier in the show, but there's a lad that does this. Yeah, I did say it, didn't I?
Yeah.
And he said just that. He said just because we're winning all these things, etc., doesn't mean that the legacy fans are any happier. And he spouted. I did say it here.
Man City is unrecognisable
to what
as a football club.
Yeah.
To what they were. To begin with, they brought, as we're now called, legacy fans. Yeah, they brought the legacy of fans along on the journey. What they're now doing, though, and why is it? Why are they doing it? As I said earlier, because of PSR. And this is another reason why I have never backed an independent authority overseeing football, because it's more regulation. More regulation will hamper the clubs like West Ham until we get someone who's willing to throw in the money and go, you know, like the Nottingham Forest manager, you know, the shipping magnate from Greece, who goes, it's my football club, I'll spend money, you know. And this is the thing. The reason why Newcastle are not in the top 4 is because they can't spend the money. So they're going to start pushing, because the fans, the owners can't put the money in. So it has to come from where? It either comes from corporate fans, or it comes from fans in the stand, or it comes from sponsorship. I just milked all the sponsorship that the club can milk. We've already got official toothpaste, an official loo roll, and all official shite like that nobody ever fucking buys or ever heard of. You know, I've never gone, oh, can I have an official West Ham United tyre, please?
Yeah.
You know? But I would like to say, I don't know if he watches, to Peter, thank you very much for your gift. I need to email you. I've mentioned it on the podcast. I got a new gift this week, and it was a jacket that was once belonged to Slaven Bilic. It's his club jacket, and he sent it to the tailors because it was, I think it just needed taking in, and he never collected it. The one thing I will say is Slav was a damn sight slimmer than me, because yes, I had to try it on.
Ted wants to know your social media, so tell him about.
Ted, I'm boring on social media. You'll see me rant. I don't know. My WHUFC on Twitter. I'm toying with doing TikTok videos.
Are you?
Yeah, I am. But that'll be purely
TikTok.
history.
I still don't know how to use it, but there you go.
And more than just a podcast, and of course here every other Friday night. Well, when I say other Friday night,
let's not
say every other Friday night.
Let's just say on a Friday. I mean, with the best intentions. I mean, you know, I've been away, you've been busy. There've been other things happening. I mean, the best intentions. We do want to do it every other Friday, but should we just say
to people? I drove to Wales and back today. Yeah,
there you go. He got home at 8 o'clock tonight, so I'm, you know. Did I ask you? Was it yesterday? I asked you. Was it this morning? So I'm my time. It was yesterday, wasn't it?
Oh no, you did say no. It was the other day. You said you up for it.
Are you available? Yeah. And then tonight he went. Not a long one.
Well, yeah. I'll be up early. No, it ain't been a long one, because normally we're here till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Well, that is true. That is true. I'm guessing you're going tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
where are you going to be? Quickly.
I actually don't know, to be honest with you. We keep moving. We can't decide. Oh, I would love to go to the supporters club, Nigel.
I'm thinking about just popping my head in there just to let them know I still ain't gone away.
Yeah. Let's not be critical online. We'll talk about it off. But
all right.
Yeah. All right, people. Cheers, Nigel.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for commenting. Sorry I couldn't actually, respond directly to all your comments. But we did try. There's a few comments that, a few questions that we kind of answered. So thank you for that. Really much appreciated. Watch out for the post-match review that I'll do tomorrow, so long as I'm sober. And we'll see you all soon. Cheers, Nigel.